was that change in shopper behavior or expectations for your retail channel partners that first kind of caught your attention, made you realize this is a big thing we need to care about?
Yeah, thanks, Benny. And I think I'll take the latter first, and I'll kind of spin it back to, what does that look like? I think for us, for me specifically, I almost looked at my own consumer behavior. Like all of a sudden, I looked back over the last like 3, 4, 5 months, and I was, wow, I'm searching a lot more on Gemini than I am on Google. I can't be alone in this, so I started asking a few team members, et cetera, and family members, friends, and people like, yeah, we're engaging in this. So that was kind of like an initial kind of just like around me look that I'd like, we have to think about this. But then even some leadership within our organization, all the way up to our board, started asking questions about how do you guys think? What is this agentic commerce thing? And so that there was kind of some more, which always doesn't happen, some external forces of people challenging us to how we thought about that. So that was kind of like one of the more bigger aha moments. But then ultimately also we started seeing shifts from certain retail partners of like, hey, we're requiring this type of data set. We're preparing to deploy these type of new technologies and things that we were never really asked for prior. So we knew there was kind of a shift happening. And then I think the last thing from an aha moment was when we started really seeing some changes, regardless of wherever it was, retail.com, DTC, et cetera, just changes in shopping referral traffic and behavior. And it started coming through very small. And it's slowly, gradually rising. And then we saw some declines in some other areas. So we saw this pretty black and white shift in certain areas to that was not anything historical. And so we knew we had to start looking at it differently. The question then becomes, how fast do you pivot? Because I think in this area, it's moving almost faster than what some of the either referral engines, tech providers, et cetera, are moving because of how fast the consumer's adopting it. So like I'll start with retail.com in general, specifically marketplaces and Amazon. We really needed to, because our catalog is very large, we previously did some templatizing and certain things to scale our business fast. Well, what we learned is, particularly with how people are searching so long form query now, is we can't really always be things in a templatized fashion. We have to make sure that they're customized to the product. So we worked through some strategies to change the way we bring our products to market to ensure that you're really understanding, one, who the consumer is, but two, what is the algorithm looking for? And it's not just algorithm keywords basis, but there's different pieces and components within the algorithm that contextually you want to make sure you service. And so that I would say is one of the biggest changes we've made from a strategic point of view, on a copywriting especially. But then you have this whole visual aspect of it, and OCR technology, that everything within images is basically readable.
Mhm.
And talk about what an aha moment. And we learned this by saying like, hey, let's take the image that we have currently today, which is basically just an image of the product. And then we take like an optimized image with an infographic, et cetera, and drop it in, and then have the generative AI search like tell us about it. And it's amazing to see the differences of what is fed when you give it extra information versus blank information per se. So that was kind of another way where we've changed to be like, okay, it's not just about what you write, it's about what's being seen to help generate your output and your recommendations from there. So those are two like big strategies that we've changed in certain areas. And I don't know if I'll start with some of the, obviously this is a big service provider area that's starting to pop up as people, organizations finding ways and to evaluate how you're being sorted across the different LLMs, Perplexity, Gemini, ChatGPT, et cetera. So there's absolutely third-party providers out there that are ahead of this and honestly helping people out. And I'd encourage anyone to take a look at it, if anything, just to learn, because I think that is the most tangible way that people are starting to see some type of criteria evaluation score against it. I think that the question becomes, how are you getting that data? How are you evaluating it? What are you evaluating at this LLM or this shopping engine versus this one to keep it consistent, apples to apples? Because it's a little bit of not black box, but I think everyone's doing it a little bit differently. And so that might send you one way or the other, depending on your situation. So, but there are service providers that can help do this for you from a tangible point of view. So that's one we are looking at. Number two is, and even I did start seeing some of the e-com platforms are even starting to put a few product modules in that can be like, hey, how are you benchmarking on ChatGPT, et cetera. So that was an interesting for me to see recently. But I think lastly, we know it's not immediate, but we will we'll launch something, give it a little time, and then go ahead and just ask it ourselves, whether that's ChatGPT, Gemini, Rufus, etc. In fact, one thing we did recently, my DTC director, we ran a sale and on a certain line, and about 3 or 4 days later, we asked it like, "Hey, it was generic, like, hey, what's a good sale going on right now around in the toys, games, and puzzle space or whatever," like something generic. And sure enough, it indexed and generated in here of like, hey, here's 5 promotions from these different companies. So sometimes it's just like manual trial and error, a little bit of that. So
Was that a
that
flash sale or was it on for like a little while?
it was, I think, under a week.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not real time. I want to say it was 3 or 4 days that we gave it just to like give it a little bit of
Sure.
time. But that was the kind of the really tangible way we did it manually.
Um, in response to some of this, has your team thought about the shifting of roles and kind of what you're asking people to do as you're reacting to the different KPIs, the different expectations, different referring traffic sources, different insights that you need? It Someone's got to do this work,
Yep.
right? And I'm guessing that no one's offering you 5 extra roles on the team in order to do it. So
Well,
how are you guys thinking about shifting roles, responsibilities within e-com, content teams, analytics groups?
yeah, I think there's a couple ways to look at this. One number first and foremost is education and making sure that everyone within these certain areas, marketing, digital, sales, et cetera, is kind of at least to a 10,000 foot view of understanding this shifting behavior of like, why do we need to do this? I think that's
Mhm.
first and foremost, and that's kind of an educational point that we try to infuse into the whole thing. That's one. Number two is, I think we've made a conscious effort to, hey, anything new related, we really need to understand it. So we've identified certain people within the organization, like, hey, you are really focusing on new items that are bringing to market, and you need to understand this end to end to get a base foundation to make sure that we're covered off from SEO, AEO, GEO aspect of it. So that's the start. Then there's this optimization aspect of, hey, once you get it live and get it running, or looking back to existing items, how do we think about constantly optimizing those items as seasonal shift changes, or different interests come through, or different search behaviors come through, or whatever it may be. And that is kind of a hybrid approach that I'm not quite sure yet. We have identified a few people to just be like, hey, you're going to look at existing item only and rinse, repeat, publish, and then let's see what happens. But then there's also some aspect of, what does automation do in the future? We're talking about using AI to combat AI, but there's service providers and there's people out there that can take this information and do that automatically to ingest all this data and optimize your titles to ensure that they're meeting the most recent requirements. But it's not, you still need to feed that engine. You still need to be like, hey, here's the brand voice, and here's requirements, here's compliance issues. So you constantly, like, we almost move people into a less of an executional role and more of a guidance role to be like, hey, make sure whatever's being ingested and outputted is meeting the requirements of our brand, of our compliance, of legal regulations, et cetera. So it's not a replacement of what they did. It's, hey, they're going to do the hard work, but you got to do the double hard work to make sure that what's being outputted is best in class. And then it gets done again and again and again.
And it's the notion of slowing down to speed up. It's don't want to let the sort of train get out of control here, and the imposition of guardrails and governance practice that needs to be applied within kind of your organization in order to allow those teams to speed up, right? Like we all look at it and we say, my gosh, this is that 10x opportunity. I can, get so much more out of the team that we have, we can deliver, but you're, losing a lot of oversight. So how are you guys thinking about those guardrails, those governance practices to ensure that you retain control and that you are the driver in the conversation and treating the AI as your thought partner as opposed to letting it make decisions for you?
Yeah. In from my perspective, I think you prioritize it based on, hey, whatever product or category you're talking in, how much of that is the size of your business? Because you might be a little bit more lenient for something that does 0.5% of your business versus 12% of your business. So that's where I've kind of stepped in from a magnitude point of view and prioritization. I think the second piece is I'm a firm believer of legality. Well, not a firm believer of legality, obviously, but like double, triple, quadruple check of anything from a legal or compliance point of view. Anything that crosses or somewhat pushes the barrier there, like we gotta put a pause on it and at least double check to ensure that we're covered there. Because the last thing we need to do is ensure that something goes out that's just not legally compliant. So that's kind of a hard guardrail that I've set with the team. The last piece I'm pushing internally to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. The power of service providers, PIMs, et cetera, is that you can move fast. And so as long as there's not a major mistake, and that goes back to the legal and compliance and everything that I talked about, if you push it out and someone may have a challenge with it, or someone buys it and they misunderstood, we can fix it pretty quickly. So like, don't get stuck on making it perfect to slow down how fast this engine is moving, because we can always put it back into the engine and publish it back out.
We did take a few minutes beforehand to try and create a list of moves that you can make as you're walking away from this conversation and trying to apply all the good stuff that Matt's been talking about and into your business and your organization. And so we thought through a couple of these that could be good actions for you. The first would be really inventorying your data model, inventorying the way that your organization is thinking about product information and going through that normalization activity, whether it's making sure your schemas and taxonomies are consistent. Otherwise, you're sort of at the mercy of the model to kind of figure it out for you. And if you can take away some of that and lay it out for these agents and tools and models to consume your data in a consistent way, I think you'll find that there's going to be a little bit more of a consistent set of answers that are being provided back to you. The second, and I love this instrument provenance. Really, it's like I tell my 13-year-old son who loves to try and BS me all day long, cite your sources. Okay. Like if you're going to try and make something up to me, like cite your source, tell me where it came from. Really the inclusion of sources and timestamps and in that verification of data goes a really long way to build confidence in your citations and ensure that you're being referenced with authority as these models are consuming your data. Third bit, design for answers, not just that product experience that's coming there. Remember, you've got a new customer, right? You got a new kind of shopper here, and that shopper is not as concerned about that beautiful page you put together and is much more focused on gaining context, getting insight. Really lay out that information, assuming that one of these models is going to come along and scrape that thing up. Even without feeds going directly to the providers, Matt referenced it, being able to acknowledge a sale or an update in price within a couple of days, let alone when everything opens up and feeds are being consumed through Shopify or through other, cart systems. we can expect that to happen even faster. The fourth would be really enabling agent distribution and access. And this was that, kind of like jumping back in time with SEO authority and backlinks driving it. Just make sure that these tools can reach through your catalog into your connected data pools. It's going to draw connections. We know that our Syndigo PX Cloud for Retail really tries to bring it all together with that consistency and connectivity to different data pools. And that can be another one of the tools at your disposal for linking things together and helping it become more discoverable. And the last piece is measuring agent visibility. So at the very least, especially if you have your own direct consumer site as a manufacturer selling your products, or if you have some relationship with one of your retailers where you get visibility of how traffic's coming in. But making sure you're tracking share of citation, tracking that referral traffic source to understand what is the distribution of traffic, what is the impact, what does it make up on your site, and how are you getting that traffic? So how can you choose to prioritize and augment the metadata and on your site so that it's appropriately optimized for these tools.